This is the long story of the lands between, told from the very start. It begins far away with a power called the Greater Will. The Greater Will was an outer god, vast and distant. It lived among the stars, beyond the world we will speak of. Long ago, it reached into the world and set things in order. It sent a piece of itself down to the lands between. This piece was a golden being called the Elden Beast. The Elden Beast carried the power of order within it. In time, that power was shaped into a ring of runes. This ring was the Elden Ring, the law of the whole land. The Elden Ring held the rules that all life would follow. While it stayed whole, the world stayed whole as well. The Greater Will also sent down servants to speak for it. One was Metter, a mother of fingers, far below the earth. From her came the two fingers, who passed on the god's wishes. The two fingers could not speak with words like people do. They moved and trembled, and finger readers told their meaning. So the will of a far god reached the world through small, strange hands. But the lands between were old, and other ages had come before. Long before the golden tree rose, dragons ruled everything. They were ancient and huge, with scales like gray stone. The greatest of them was named Placidusax. Placidusax had many heads and wings that filled the sky. He was the Elden Lord of that older time. He ruled from a city in the clouds called Farum Azula. Placidusax served a god of his own great lord. But one day, that god left and did not come back. Placidusax chose to wait for it, no matter how long. He drew his city away into a storm beyond time. There he still waits, old and tired, for a god that is gone. His city slowly fell apart, drifting in the endless wind. After the dragons, their children grew weaker and smaller. They could no longer call the great red lightning of old. Some learned to live beside the new powers that rose. And so, the long age of the dragons quietly faded. A new age was about to begin in the lands between. Before order came, life came from a place called the Crucible. The Crucible was the mixing pot of all living things. In it, every kind of life was tangled together as one. Creatures grew with horns, with tails, with wings and roots. Nothing was tidy, and nothing was kept apart. The Crucible was wild and full, the raw shape of life. From this messy root, the first great tree would later grow. But the new order would call these old shapes a curse. Horns and tails would be named impure and pushed away. Still, the Crucible came first, and all life owed it a debt. That debt was easy to forget once the gold tree rose. Far to the side lay a place called the Land of Shadow. It was part of the lands between, though later it was hidden. In that land lived people with horns, called the Hornsent. The Hornsent ruled, and they cruel. Among them lived a quiet people called the shamans. The shamans had a strange gift in their flesh. Their flesh could join with others and bind them as one. The horn scent used this gift in dark and painful ways. They sealed shamans inside great jars, packed tight together. They believed this could make holy beings out of pain. It was a slow and bitter cruelty, hidden in clay. In a small shaman village lived a woman named Marika. Marika watched her people suffer at the hornscent's hands. One day, a terrible thing fell upon her village. Her people were taken and broken, and she was left behind. Out of that grief, something in Marika changed forever. The two fingers looked down and chose her for a great task. She was an Empyrean, one who could rise to be a god. So Marika left the shadow and walked toward the light. The two fingers led Marika to the gate of divinity. There she gave up her old life and was made into a god. She became the vessel of the Elden Ring itself. The law of the land now lived inside her. From her power, a vast golden tree began to grow. This was the Erd tree, the heart of the new world. Its branches spread wide, gold against the sky. The Erd tree gave off a soft light called grace. Grace was a blessing, a guiding gold in the eyes. Those who held grace were watched over by the Order. Marika became Queen Marika the Eternal, the one true God. Her rule was called the Golden Order. Under it, the land grew rich and bright and proud. A great city rose at the foot of the tree. It was called Leyndell, the royal capital. From there, the Golden Order reached across the land, but to make her order safe, Marika did a careful thing. The Elden Ring held within it a rune of death. This rune was called Destined Death. It was the part of the law that let great ones truly die. Long before, death had a keeper of its own. She was the glow-eyed queen, an Empyrean like Marika. She held the power of black flame and true death. Around her gathered the godskin apostles, hunters of gods. They went from place to place, slaying the divine. Marika could not let death stay in such hands. She had a loyal guardian named Malekith. Malekith was a beast bound to her in shadow, her shadow self. He hunted down the glow-eyed queen and her hunters. In the end, the keeper of death was beaten and gone. Then Marika pulled Destined Death out of the Elden Ring. She gave it to Malekith to hold and hide. He sealed it inside his sword, the black blade. With death locked away, the order changed in a deep way. Marika's children could no longer truly die. They could be hurt, but their lives would always return. Only Malekith, who held death, could end them for good. And so the demigods feared him, everyone. This was the secret base on which the Golden Order stood. Marika needed a champion to lead her armies. She found a mighty warrior from the wild badlands. His name was Horalu, a chief of fierce people. He became her first husband, her first consort, and he was crowned the first Elden Lord, named Godfrey. Godfrey was strong and proud, born to fight and lead. He gathered the golden host and went out to war. First came the long war against the giants. The giants lived in the cold mountains in the north. They worshipped a fell god, a cruel flame of ruin. Godfrey's armies climbed the snow and broke the giants. The fell god's flame was caught and locked away. One last fire giant was left alive to guard it. He sat by the dying flame for many long years. Next came the great war against the dragons. A huge dragon named Gransax led an attack on the capital. The dragons crashed down upon Lanedell from the sky, but the golden forces held and pushed the dragons back. Marika's son, Godwyn, fought a great dragon named Fortisax. Godwyn won, but he chose to spare the beast's life. From that mercy, a strange friendship was born. Godwyn and the dragons made peace and shared their power. A dragon cult grew among those who loved him. Godfrey also faced a lone storm lord on a high hill. He beat him in single combat and took his castle. That place became known as Stormvale. One by one, the old powers bowed to the Golden Order. The lands between were now ruled by Marika and her lord. But Marika had not forgotten the land of her birth. She still remembered the Hornsent and their cruelty. She had a son named Mesmer, called the Impaler. Mesmer carried a fire and a serpent within him. Marika feared that hidden serpent, even as she used him. She sent Mesmer to the land of shadow with an army. His task was to wipe the Hornsent from the world. Mesmer's flames swept across the Shadowland. Cities fell, and the old horned rulers were broken. When the work was done, Marika hid the whole land away. She drew a veil over it and cut it from the rest. Mesmer and his soldiers were sealed inside the shadow. They were left there, far from the golden light. And so a whole land and a whole war was buried from sight. Few in the bright world would ever learn of it. Now the story turns to Marika's family. With Godfrey, Marika had a son, Godwyn the Golden. Godwyn was loved by all, kind and bright and brave. She also bore twin sons marked by the old crucible. They were born with horns and were named omens. The order called omens a curse and hid them away. These twins were Morgoth and Mohg. They were raised in the dark beneath the capital. They grew up shamed for how they were born. Later, Marika took a second consort named Rhaedagon. Rhaedagon was a tall man with deep red hair. And here lay one of the deepest secrets of all. Rhaedagon and Marika were two halves of one being. They were the same person, split into man and woman. Before he came to Marika, Rhaedagon had another life. In the land of lakes, he wed a queen named Renala. Renala led the Carian royal house and its moon magic. With her, Radagon had 3 children of great power. The first was Radon, a giant of a warrior. The second was Rykard, hungry for strength and change. The third was Rani, quiet and clever, a witch of the moon. Then Radagon left Renala to stand beside Marika. Renala was broken by his leaving and never healed. She stayed in her academy, lost in old magic. With Marika, Radagon had 2 more children, twin Empyreans. One was Miquella, gifted beyond all others. The other was Melania, a peerless blade. But each twin was born under a heavy curse. Miquella could not grow and stayed forever a child. Melania carried a scarlet rot deep in her body. The rot slept inside her, waiting to bloom. These were the demigods, the children of the gods. Their fates would shape everything that came next. In time, Godfrey finished his last great war. He won every fight until no foes were left. When the wars ended, the grace left his eyes. The gold light that marked him faded away. Without grace, he was no longer fit to be lord. Marika sent him out from the lands between. He returned to the Badlands as Hora Lu once more. He was the first of the tarnished, the grace lost. Many others lost their grace and followed him out. The tarnished lived far away, exiles from the gold. But Marika had made them a quiet promise. One day their grace would return and call them home. One day they would come back to mend what was broken. That day was still far off, and the world did not know. For a long while, the Golden Order held strong. But under the calm, dark plans were taking shape. Rani, the witch, did not want her God-given fate. She did not wish to live as a puppet of the fingers. So she set in motion a careful, terrible plan. She gathered a band of black knife assassins. They were quiet women who came from Marika's own kin. They stole a sliver of destined death from Malekith's blade. With it, they touched their knives with the power of death. On a still, dark night, they crept into the city. This night came to be called the Night of the Black Knives. Their target was Godwyn the Golden, the beloved son. They struck him down with the stolen power of death, but it was a strange and broken kind of death. Godwyn's soul died while his body lived on. He became the Prince of Death, half gone, half here. His death crept down into the roots of the Erdtree. From him, a death root spread under the land. On that same night, Rani gave up her own body. She slipped her soul into a doll to escape the fingers. Her flesh died, but her mind and will lived on. Now death had entered a world that thought itself safe. The death of Godwyn struck Marika to her core. The first of her children had died and could not return. Grief and rage rose up inside the eternal queen. Perhaps grief broke her, or perhaps she had planned it all. Either way, Marika turned against the order she had built. She raised a hammer and struck the Elden Ring. She shattered the great law into many pieces. The pieces became great runes, scattered far and wide. Each of her surviving children seized a shard of power. Marika told them to fight for the right to rule. The one who mended the ring would become the new lord. Radagon, her other half, tried to fix what she broke. He struck the ring again and again, trying to mend it. But what was broken would not come whole again. The greater will looked down in cold anger. Its chosen god had broken its sacred law, so the greater will turned its face from Marika. Marika and Radagon were bound inside the Erd tree. They were pinned to its trunk, god and shadow as one. The golden tree, once open, shut its gate, and the greater will sent its guidance away. The lands between were left without their god. With no god to hold them, the demigods went to war. This long and bloody time was called the Shattering. Each demigod fought to take the other's shards. The land was torn apart, and no one could win. In the east, Radon held a red and dusty land. He was Star-Scourge Radon, the strongest of warriors. His power was so great he could hold back the stars. He froze the stars in the sky to trap Ranni's fate. Against him came his half-sister, Malenia. Their two armies met on a wide and open field. The battle was long, and neither side gave way. At last, Malenia let her scarlet rot bloom. A red flower of rot burst from her body. The rot spread across the whole eastern land. That green country became Kaled, sick and red forever. Radon lived, but the rot ate away at his mind. He was left a broken shell of the lord he had been. In the volcano lands, Rykard sought another way. He hungered for power to defy the Gold Order. He let a great serpent swallow him whole. He became one with it, the Lord of Blasphemy. He fed his foes to the serpent in his hall. Beneath the capital, the twin omens chose their paths. Morgoth stayed loyal to the order that had shamed him. He guarded the empty city and waited for a worthy lord. His brother Moog went the other way. Moog went down into the blood-soaked depths below. He dreamed of building a dynasty of blood. He needed a godchild to crown as his own, and he set his eyes on the gentle Miquella. Miquella had watched the Order fail his sister. Its gold magic could not cure Malenia's rot. So Miquella turned away from the Golden Order. He dreamed of a kinder world, free of the old cruelty. He planted a new tree of his own, the Halleck tree. He grew it in secret, far in the frozen north. It became a refuge for the unwanted and the cast out. To grow it into a true great tree, he gave himself to it. Miquella wrapped himself in a cocoon among the roots. There he slept, slowly shedding his old self. His sister Melania stood guard and waited for him. But Moog found the sleeping child in his cocoon. He tore Miquella from the tree and carried him away. He took the god-child down to his blood palace. There Moog tried to raise Miquella to a god. He wished to rule beside him as his blood consort. Without Miquella, the haligtree began to die. Melania waited and waited, and her rot stirred. At last, her scarlet rot bloomed within the tree. The white tree of hope turned sick and red. And so even the kindest dream fell to ruin. The shattering ground on, with no end and no winner. Field after field was lost, and no lord rose up. The demigods sat broken in their fallen lands. The Erd-tree stood closed, gold and silent. Its gate was barred by a wall of thorns. The grace that once guided the land had gone dim. The greater will had given up on its broken children. The lands between waited, quiet, and gray for something new, and far away in the Badlands, the lost ones stirred. The greater will still wanted its order restored. So it sent grace out once more, far past the land. The grace reached the graves of the tarnished exiles. The promise Marika had made long ago came true. The dead grace lost were called back to life. They were drawn home across the sea to the lands between. They came to find the broken ring and make it whole. One of these tarnished is the one we follow now. A lone wanderer with faint grace in their eyes, they washed ashore in a quiet, ruined land. Before them rose the distant, golden tree. A voice told them to seek the great runes of the demigods. Only by gathering the shards could the ring be mended. So the tarnished set out on a long, hard road. They passed through storm-swept hills and quiet farms. They climbed to Stormvale, where a grafted lord ruled. They moved on into the land of misty lakes. They faced Renala in her fading academy of moons. They crossed the red ruin of Kaled in the east. There they met Radon, the great warrior, lost to rot. In a festival of battle, they laid the hero to rest. His fall let the frozen stars move once again. The tarnished climbed the burning peak of the volcano. They ended Rykard, the serpent lord, in his hall, step by step. They gathered the shards of the ring. Their path led at last to the golden capital. At Lanedell, Morgoth rose to bar the way. The loyal Omen King fought to guard the empty throne. He fell, still faithful to the order that scorned him, but the Erd-tree would not open to the tarnished. A great wall of thorns sealed its golden gate. To pass, the thorns had to be burned away, and only one flame could do it, kept far below. The tarnished sought out the giant's hidden fire. They lit a great flame and cast it on the tree. The thorns burned, and the city burned with them. Now one last guardian stood in the way. Deep in a floating ruin waited Malekith. He still held destined death within his blade. The Tarnished faced the shadow beast and won. When Malekith fell, his black blade was broken. Destined death spilled out into the world at last. Now true death was loose across the lands between. Even the gods themselves could now truly die. This was both a curse and a strange kind of freedom. With death set free, the way to the tree lay open. The Tarnished walked into the burning golden tree. At its heart waited the bound god and her shadow. First came Godfrey, returned as Hoarah once more. The first Elden Lord fought the would-be last one. The old warrior gave everything, and at last he fell. Then Radagon stepped forth from the trunk of the tree. He struck with the broken ring, fighting to defend it. And in him, Marika and Radagon were one and the same. When Radagon fell, the true keeper of order woke. The golden Elden beast rose up inside the tree. It was the living shape of order itself. The Tarnished faced this final, shining foe. They fought among falling stars and golden dust. At last, the great beast was struck down. The broken Elden Ring lay open and waiting, and the long age of Queen Marika came to its end. What came next was for the Tarnished to choose. On the most common path, they mended the ring. They took up the law and became the new Elden Lord. They held the Golden Order together, scarred but whole. A new age of gold began, much like the old. But there were other paths the Tarnished could walk. One path belonged to Ranni, the Witch of the Moon. Long ago, she had given up her body to be free. She wished to take her order far from the gold. She offered an age ruled not by the tree, but by the night. If the Tarnished helped her, a new age dawned. This was the age of the stars, cold and quiet. Ranni took the law and turned away from the land. She set rule and faith at a great, distant remove. Then she and her chosen Lord left the world behind. Together, they sailed off on a long voyage in the dark. Other endings waited too, for those who sought them. One could call back the lost dead under a duskborn age. One could let the wild flame of frenzy burn it all. One could heal the rot or rule by Marika's hidden wish. Each path led the lands between to a different dawn. But every path began with one lone Tarnished and a broken ring. Yet the story did not fully end at the golden tree. One thread still reached back into the hidden shadow. The gentle Miquella had grown tired of all the cruelty. He set out on a path to become a kind new god. To do it, he chose to cast off parts of himself. He shed his love, his fear, and his doubt one by one. His love took shape as a sleeping figure named Saint Trina. She was Miquella's other half, his softer self, set aside. He left these pieces of himself behind on the road. Then Miquella crossed into the land of shadow. He sought the same gate of divinity that raised Marika. He wished to be a god who ruled by love, not fear. But his love was a charm that bent every will. To stand beside him, he needed a mighty consort. He looked to his brother Radon, the great warrior. Long ago, the two had made a quiet promise. Radon had vowed to be Miquella's lord and shield. So Miquella used the body of the dead Moog. Into that blood-soaked vessel, he called Radon back. Radon returned as the promised consort, reborn in shadow. Together, they rose toward the gate to claim their age. But a challenger followed them into the land of shadow. The same kind of lone wanderer came to bar the way. In the depths of the hidden land, they met at last. The kind god and his warrior stood against one seeker, and once more, the fate of an age hung on a single fight. So even Miquella's gentle dream met the same hard test. This is the shape of the whole long story. It begins with a far god and a falling golden seed. It passes through ancient dragons in their storm. It rises with Marika, a grieving woman made divine. It shines in the golden age of the great tree. It hides a buried war in a land of shadow. It turns on one quiet murder in the dark. It breaks apart in the shattering of the ring. It burns through the wars of the broken demigods. And it waits, at last, for the lost ones to return. A single tarnished walks all the way to the tree. They face the bound god and the shape of order itself. And they choose what the next age of the world will be: gold or stars or flame or quiet endless night. The Elden Ring waits, broken to be made whole. And the lands between turn slowly toward a new dawn. That is the full timeline, from the first light to the last. From the greater will to the Erd Tree, to the lone wanderer at its roots. And here, at the close of the long account, the story comes to rest.